Nikkei Asia News Roundup
with Jada and Brian. Welcome to the Nikkei Asia News Roundup with your hosts Jada and Brian,
bringing you the latest updates and insights on the dynamic world of Asia and more.
Now let's delve into the headlines. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.
Honda Motor has unveiled a Formula One power unit it will supply to the Aston Martin racing team for this year, as the Japanese automaker returns to the sport in a bid to win over customers with high-performance technologies in its mass-produced models.
An app that cost less than $200 to build and caused a stir in China this month has provided a glimpse into the mindset and fears of young people who live alone in the world's second-largest economy.
Beef sellers in Greater Jakarta went on strike this week to protest soaring meat prices triggered by the falling Indonesian currency and shortages arising from the government's sharp cuts in import quotas for private traders this year.
Japan has agreed to be the first international partner in a Trump administration project to speed up scientific research through the use of AI.
4 years after taking effect, landmark legislation in South Korea has not managed to curb the frequency of industrial accidents, highlighting the persistence of an old problem plaguing the country's workplaces.
All members of the Football Association of Malaysia's Executive Committee resigned with immediate effect on Wednesday in a move aimed at shielding the body from further reputational damage over a scandal about foreign players' eligibility to represent the national team. Now moving on to the next segment.
India tunes in as podcasts go mainstream. Shruti Kumar, a 26-year-old advertising professional in Bengaluru, began listening to podcasts to make her daily commute less of a drudgery. Now, she says, she is hooked on the medium and sometimes prefers podcasts to reading or watching TV. Kumar is far from alone. Podcasts have seen rapid growth in India in recent years, turning what was once a niche format into a mainstream form of entertainment and information. The global podcast industry was valued at about $27 billion in 2023 and is projected to grow at a compound annual rate of more than 15% between 2024 and 2032, according to industry estimates. India has emerged as one of the fastest-growing markets, with 105 million podcast listeners in 2024, according to a study by the India Brand Equity Foundation published in July 2025. That figure is expected to exceed 200 million in coming years, according to the report, making the country the world's third-largest podcast market after China and the U.S. India's linguistic diversity has also shaped podcast consumption. Shows are being produced in multiple Indian languages, and increasingly, listeners in smaller cities are turning to podcasts in their preferred languages. Despite their popularity, podcasts remain challenging to monetize. While advertising and sponsorships exist, brands are still cautious about investing heavily in what many see as a young industry, according to an Indian School of Business report.
Opinion: the last pandas in Japan cannot ease geopolitical tensions. On January 25th, Japanese visitors saw the giant panda twins Xiao Xiao and Lele for the last time at Tokyo's Ueno Zoo. Their departure has left Japan without any pandas for the first time since diplomatic normalization with China in 1972. Beijing has stated that the animals will return to China approximately a month earlier than the scheduled expiration of the loan agreement at the end of February. The timing has drawn intense public attention. Functionally, the episode offers a textbook example of emotional statecraft, the use of emotionally resonant symbols to shape foreign public sentiment outside formal diplomatic channels. The panda's departure is not an isolated cultural moment, but part of a broader pattern of Chinese signaling toward Japan. One that now spans tourism curbs, media pressure, trade controls, and regional security signaling across the Indo-Pacific. Unlike traditional diplomacy, which targets elites and institutions, emotional statecraft operates at the level of affection, nostalgia, and identity. Pandas are uniquely suited to this role. Cute, apolitical, and universally adored, they bypass policy debate and speak directly to the public. For decades, China has deployed them as its most successful soft power ambassadors. Their departure, therefore, is not an impulsive gesture. It is a calibrated signal aimed less at Japanese policymakers than at Japanese society itself.
And now for news highlights. Today we are sharing a couple of Nikkei Asia's most well-read stories in the last few days.
And looking at the top 10, we have a story that's done very, very well this week, which is about Xi Jinping's historic purge of China's military. So this has been a topic sort of in the last couple of years, right? It's not the first time that sort of the same thing has happened, but...
Yeah, Xi's been in power he's been the head of China for... What is it now? Since late 2012. So it's been a while. It's been 12 years, more than 12 years. And every once in a while there's been these movements to kind of shake things up or clean house, if you want to put it politely. There was one against luxuries and like kickbacks and bribery. And some of that's done with lavish parties and gifts and whatnot. So he's really cut back on that. But other times there's selectively getting rid of people in certain positions of power. I mean, like... forcing them to retire and things like that. And last week, over the weekend, he did one that is confusing a lot of people who are China watchers, in that he basically forced the retirement of his top military advisor, this a general who's been friends with Xi, as far as we know, since before he even became head of China. And is considered a major conduit to the elders and other people in the party apparatus. And so people are wondering what happened there and why did he do it and what happens now that Xi doesn't have this connection, because he was this general was considered the guy that would sort of smooth things over between Xi and the other elite power people behind the curtain, so to speak.
Because the guy... his name is Zheng, but he was the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission. So that's a, huge, very key body in China. And as you mentioned, given his relationship with Xi that dates back, the story also points out that they sort of have this connection that they are fellow second-generation Reds, so that's sort of a term for descendants of the Revolutionary-era Chinese Communist Party leaders.
Yeah, they tend to be the children of people who led the revolution. And so they grew up around it and were expected to sort of inherit it.
And he's accused of leaking secrets about China's nuclear weapons program to the U.S., and sort of the narrative or description that have been in China's media is sort of, it points out that it's sort of a first thing. It's very, I don't want to say accusatory, but very strong-worded. So everybody is trying to predict what really did go on. Did he do something? What did he do? Or is it just she sort of trying to consolidate more powers and get rid of possibly more, people who are gaining more power than he likes?
Yeah, there's a couple factors there where people are considering. One is that he's 75, which is past the retirement age for the position that he was in already. So people thought Xi was keeping him in power because he trusted him and wanted him in. Basically, was really good at what he did.
Yeah.
And now he's gone. So it's like, what happened? What changed? And the other one is there is the Congress coming up next year, where Xi is expected to go for a fourth term as China's president. And so he might be shuffling things around or maybe getting rid of people who might influence other people rising up the ranks. And that's where the speculation gets really confusing because people thought they had a beat on this situation.
True. And I think one of the interesting aspects is how will this affect Taiwan, which Beijing claims as its own territory. And a lot of the experts seem to point out that short term, it means, Taiwan will sort of, maybe they'll see a little bit of a peaceful phase where, China will be busy getting new people or doing this purge in the military. So it won't be immediate attacks. But in the long term, if this means Xi is having more loyal people to him, make up the military, that could mean huge negative impacts to Taiwan in the long term.
Let's go for a little brighter note. Let's talk about some tourism. And speaking of China, tourism in Vietnam.
Yeah.
That's another one of the top stories here is about how Vietnam is seeing a surge in Chinese tourists.
Yes. Vietnam. So let me see. So there's a lot of stats in this story, but South Vietnam was the top Southeast Asian travel spot for Chinese travelers in 2025, and it's
replacing
Thailand.
There you go.
We've talked about Thailand a lot in the recent months, but there's been border issues. There's also been sort of an abduction, cybercrime concerns. So
there was a Chinese celebrity who was caught up in that cybercrime thing.
Yes.
A lot of people. He was arrested by Thailand. People were thinking, "Oh, this is not the safest or maybe the most appealing place to go to right now." And Vietnam seems to be enjoying the popularity. As somebody pointed out that Vietnam is pretty popular with Western backpackers, but now it's becoming Chinese backpackers.
Yes, and again with Chinese travelers also avoiding Japan now because of the spat between those two countries. Vietnam is also sort of looks to be benefiting from that trend.
Yeah, and a lot of it is like independent travelers, not tour groups.
Yes, it points out that a lot of younger Chinese, like Gen Z tourists, are going for independent, as you mentioned, like backpacking, sightseeing instead of group tours, which is a new emerging trend, it seems like. But how about, I've heard that you read or had part in editing a India factory story.
I just cleaned it up a bit. Somebody else did the hard work. But it's a story about how India has been trying to boost its economy. It's of course, it's trying to boost its economy. But one of the big pushes they're making is trying to get more women into work. And we're talking manufacturing, not just occasional side gigs, but actual jobs that can supplement and get people who are families who are in the poverty line and get them over the hump, so to speak. Nice. And the story it's an interesting story. They go into the factories. They meet a lot of the women who work on the factory lines and they talk to them. They go to their homes and talk about how it's affected their lives. And I found it really interesting to see how people are adapting to it and what they make of it. And it seems, for the most part, they enjoy it. Well, I wouldn't enjoy working is not the way to put it, but there's a positive take to it.
Because India is sort of one of the fastest growing economies in the world as well. So I guess they're contributing to that as well. And that brings us to the close of today's episode.
We look forward to having you join up again for the next edition of the Nikkei Asia News Roundup.
Stay informed, stay curious. Until next time, I'm Jada.
And I'm Brian. See you again, and take care. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.